Good afternoon, everybody, and we're live right here on Fake Chats. I have somebody special with me today, Mr. Todd Tilghman, the voice finalist and recording artist. How are you doing?
Man, I'm good. How you doing?
I'm great. So, to
Good.
start off the conversation, won't you share with us a little bit about what inspired you to be a part of The Voice?
Oh man, I a lot of times I try to say that I'm joking, and maybe I am joking. I don't know. Maybe it was a midlife crisis. I don't know. I was just in a weird spot in my life, and I could kind of feel in my heart that I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I just knew I had to change something, and something had to be different, and I had to find a different direction. So I started kind of praying and man, really looking into all different kind of things. And I mean, it's really a very long, complicated story that I'll spare you, but and just basically ended up, someone sent me a link to register to go to an open call audition for The Voice, and I registered, and really in between the time I registered and the time the audition happened, I changed my mind, and because there was a couple of months or so, maybe 3 or 4 months even in between there. And my wife kind of stepped in. She was like, "Well, you might as well take a risk. We always tell our kids to take the risks." And so I 1000% didn't think anything would come out of it. At the end of the day, we kind of thought it'd be a good story to tell the kids. But here we are. Rest is history, I guess.
So I'm sure gospel music has always been a part of your life as you were a former pastor before you
Mm-hmm.
got onto the voice. At what point was your earliest inspirations that you heard in gospel music that really inspired you to go further?
It's probably this is probably going to kind of be a canned answer according to some people, but it really is the truth. My earliest influences in gospel music, I don't know if you even consider this like gospel, but was the hymns in the church, and then also like Mahalia Jackson and kind of the soul, kind of black gospel soul kind of stuff. I always, even now, you can sort of hear that in some of the stuff I do because I would always try to emulate them. I would try to do what they were doing.
And I see you recently had an awesome performance at the Ark. Share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Oh man, I love going out there. They do the 40 days and 40 nights every year. And so, which is wild, man, because every year I feel like when I go and I talk to the people that are doing the event, man, and it's like they've told me this for 3 years now in a row. And I still am so blown away that, man, those guys just go out there. They don't live there. They just go out there and live for 40 days, to put this stuff on. But it is always just a really, great, and it's hard to explain when I say great what that means, but it's always a great crowd, and the venue, man, is amazing to be at. They have, oh my gosh, man, they've got like all of the most, like the fanciest kind of top of the line kind of stuff at the venue, and then anywhere I get, I do it in different ways, and I try, Paul said in the scripture, he didn't say it just like this, but Paul basically said, read the room, know who you're dealing with. And so I get to do it in a lot of different ways, but I always love it when I get to just go and share my faith wherever I can.
And you recently released a unique cover of
Mm-hmm.
Goodness of God. Share
Yeah.
with us what this song means to you.
Oh, you know what? That was, even recording that was kind of like an accident. I was doing it live, and I would just do it with, I wanted it kind of stripped back, and so it was just piano and vocal. And anyways, so I called a friend of mine, Tony Griffith. You may know them. I called Tony and I said, Tony, what would it take just to get a piano track so I could take when I don't have a musician, I could sort of just take with me. And so he helped me get a piano track, and so we ended up, people ended up loving it. So I recorded it. But to me, man, I think anybody who, I don't know, man, I guess anybody who has any amount of life under their belt, um, you've got all these stories of things, really, frankly, of times where you didn't know what you were going to do. And God came through. And so every time I sing that, man, I sang that song probably 1,000 times. And still, every time in my mind, it's like my brain, I can't help it, is like playing like scenes of times when we were desperate and we didn't know what to do and God came through, and so that, and I think everybody, especially people who, the people of faith, people who know the Lord and have trusted in him, I think everybody can do that. We're all sort of living that same experience. That so when you sing goodness of God, your mental movie is gonna be different, but it's still gonna be all these times God showed up, and that's why I love doing it.
And the last time I heard that song live, it was performed by the Nealons.
Oh
And,
yeah,
and before they tragically lost their lives in the plane
yeah,
crash, that was something else.
man, yeah, that was really, really very tragic. And I think it's just when stuff like that happens too. It's I don't know. It's like we see these things happening, but you just never think they're going to happen to people that are in your sphere, because we weren't, I don't guess we were friends. We weren't really close, but we were friends. We knew each other, and I guess it's just so jarring when it happens inside your sort of circle of people that and but it's also kind of, even for you and other people, it's a cool memory that you have, especially with a song like that that's something you get to hang on to.
So, as you know, the title of our show is called Faith Chats. And
Mm-hmm.
you talked a little bit while ago about how, in the hard times, the song Goodness of God brought back good things to your mind about what God has brought you through.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep your faith in the hard times?
Oh man, I that's a tough question. I guess first of all, I don't, and I don't want to get in trouble, but I don't ever have a very hard time telling people that sometimes faith is a battle, and it's a struggle, and sometimes I do fight doubt, you know, but and that does happen to me sometimes. But really, I think at the end of the day, what I do is I just kind of remind myself. I think I've always done this in hard times, whether it's with my faith or whatever. I kind of remind myself who God is, that He is who He says He is, and then I remind myself of all the times that, because man, look, God has miraculously provided for me and for my family a million times. And as I sit here right now, there are parts of my life that my brain is like, oh gosh, is this going to work out? Even though I've seen him work so many times. And so I try to remind myself of all of that. And then, really at the end of the day, I do try to remind myself that he's good and he's gracious, and I'm just a person, and he can deal with me. I think sometimes struggling with believing, because that does happen to me sometimes.
And the greatest thing for us as Christians, when we feel that doubt and anxiety to come on, we can read about the psalmist David and the
Mm-hmm.
ups and downs that he had, and that should encourage us. My whole
Mm-hmm.
entire life I've heard, "Oh well, you shouldn't question God," but
Mm-hmm.
when we get into the book of Psalms, we see David asked him, "Why am I going through this?
Yeah.
Why should I have to do this?"
Yeah.
And God always answered him. I
Yeah.
mean, it was in his time, but God always answered it.
Yeah. Oh, to me, and when I say this, I know this does not apply to like everybody, and so I don't want anybody to think I'm like putting myself in a special category. But for me, having kids, number one, and then on top of that, having children who are adopted, those, I think that has nothing in my life has taught me the nature of God like that has. And so I try to remember how I am with my kids. Like my kids, thankfully, and knock on wood right now, none of them have ever been in like trouble, like we hadn't heard from the law or anything. But when my kids get into real trouble, I you can't help it. I catch myself. I have more compassion on them. I want to show up more for them when they're in trouble. And so I try to remember, whether it's questioning God or it's just like, me and my wife, I remember through the years, we've told people there'll be times that you sort of get angry and things. And I remember we'd have people like, oh no, I never. But I'm like, God knows how you feel, whether you say it or not, or whether you admit to it or not. He knows what you're thinking and he knows how you're feeling. and he loves you anyway. I know when my kids are upset with me or wondering why I'm doing what I'm doing, and it doesn't change anything about how I love them.
And you know, that's what I always tell people. If you think it, you might as well just go ahead and release it
Yeah,
because
tell him. Yeah, he
God
knows.
already knows what you're thinking.
Yeah,
So why even hold it in and cause yourself to get bitter because God's going to find out one way or another.
right. Yeah, go ahead and tell him. He knows what you're thinking anyway. He knows how you're feeling. You literally could spend 20 minutes trying to convince him that you're on this side, but you're really on that side. He already knows. So,
And the biggest thing that I try to tell people almost on a daily basis, you can't negotiate with God.
no, no. But if you really know God, and I will say it's a journey, man. We're still, but if you really know God, you kind of don't want to negotiate. If you think about it, what he's offering is the very best that you could want. So, and now it doesn't always come in the process that you would want it to come in, but it's always the best that you could want. So you don't even really need to negotiate with it. You're messing yourself over.
Exactly. And you know, I mean, we could all come out like Jacob. We could try to wrestle with God,
Oh
and
yeah.
that wouldn't come out good either.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, when I was pastoring, and even since then, I've shared with different when I get invited to speak. I always tell that story, because if you read that story, what happens for me and probably for everybody else when we get in trouble, we always lean on the people in our lives or stuff, And the scripture says when that happened, he didn't have his people. His people had taken his stuff and gone ahead, so he couldn't lean on people and he couldn't lean on stuff, and so he just ended up wrestling. And then, we read that God did change how he was, because what happens a lot of times, man, we in the kingdom, and I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but I know in my life and in the I don't know, even the geographical region that I grew up in, we we want God to change how we are. And it's not that he won't, he will. The scripture says he never walked the same again, after that. But the scripture also said God changed who he was. He when he left there, his name was different. It was Israel after that. And so, but every one of us, a lot of times when we get by ourselves, we don't have stuff, we don't have people, it's just God. We end up wrestling. And that's kind of how it is. It's just we end up fighting with God.
So this weekend, you're going to be a part of a live video taping with Small Town Sunday and Lindy Bryson. Share with us a little bit about that.
Oh man, yeah, we're in Shelby, North Carolina. Well, I'm not in Shelby right this moment, but that's where that's going to be. We're going to be in Shelby, North Carolina, at the Don Gibson Theater. We are going to. My understanding, and Holly's actually sitting right here, so she can tell me if I'm lying. My understanding is they're going to be like with mixing and all audio and video. They're going to be recording, and it's going to be it's this kind of thing, honestly, is sort of like right down the middle of the vision that I feel like God has given me, which is that we can go into a community. We're not necessarily in a church environment, but we go into a community and we can take, well, even I would say it's a show, but what they think it's a show, but really we can take that and we can put the message out there, but in a way that's a little less conventional. Because, man, I think, man, and I'm not here like with my belt off trying to whoop nobody or nothing, but I do think one of the things that gets us in trouble is we think there's like this one method. But man, even in the scripture we learn people are different, and so as Paul said, everybody's different, but we're all part of the same body. You might be an ear and I might be an elbow, and elbows do different things than ears. And so hopefully what we can do is we share our faith and we share the message, but in a way that's not quite exactly the same as it's maybe normally shared. That's really what God has done with me is he sort of just put me at a grassroots level where my faith and sharing the love of Jesus is just very relational and kind of one-on-one a lot. And that's what we do with stuff like this. And so we'll do a lot of original stuff. We'll do a lot of covers. It'd be like fully live band. And I don't know, man, if people have heard me or if they've heard Small Town Sunday or if they've heard Lindy, but I mean, I can't really speak for myself. I sure do appreciate everybody being sweet about my singing and stuff. But I do know Small Town Sunday and Lindy are really just great, phenomenal writers and also artists. And so it's going to be a fun time. And I think if you follow all three of us or any one of us on social media, if you're where you can drive to Shelby, North Carolina, I think there's still a few tickets left, man. There's links on our stuff.
Wow. So share with us what's coming up for you in the near future.
Man, in the near future, that's hard to say. I got that I'm being independent at currently. It's hard because I'm always having conversations with people. I got a song that's going to be coming. I can't say really when it's going to be coming because we're still sort of talking about how that's all going to roll out, how that's going to play out now. Like if you would have asked me a week ago, I would have gave you a different answer. But I got a song called Holy Place that's coming. That's really important to me because I love, like, again, I love the Lord and I love God's church and I love being part of what God's church is doing. But really, me and God, man, I think we're closer when I'm like out on a trail somewhere. I'm by myself, and so I wrote a song with a couple of friends about that, about how God's wherever we are, and that's coming. There's always, I'll be, I guess if this is live, I'll be in Central City, Kentucky, just this coming Wednesday, I guess the 28th. With Jason Crowd and Scotty Inman, and it'll be fun to be with Jason because everybody's always saying we like look alike or sound alike or all the things, and so I actually kind of joke around and say I quit singing Jason Crowd songs because people gave me so much mess about it, But I'll be there with him. Oh man, I'll be in Savannah, Georgia. I don't know the day that's coming up. Oh my gosh, I'll be back in Mississippi for a benefit for a friend that's happening. It's hard just right off the top of my head to say. I stay working,
Well, Todd, it has been an honor chatting with you. Share with the folks how they can find out more about you or purchase your music.
Oh man, you can go to, really the easiest way is to go to toddtofficial.com because that has links to everything. As a matter of fact, there's a page on my website that just is called Follow. And if you go there, you can find everything else. But I mean, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and man, God, I'm on TikTok, and I'm on there. I'm on X or whatever they call Twitter now. I'm on that. I'm on all the streaming platforms, Spotify and Apple Music and all that. So really, but like I said, if you go to toddtofficial.com, you can find pretty much all those other things.
Well, Todd, what an honor being able to talk with you today. Thank you for your time, and you're always welcome back here on Fake Chats.
Man, I hope I get to come back. I really appreciate you letting me come on here today. It's an honor for me.
Absolutely. It was an honor.